They told you a lie so convincing that generations of women carried it like an unshakable truth. That beauty fades, that youth is the ultimate currency of desire, and that once it slips away, your power is gone. But if you dare to look beneath the surface, if you peel back the layers of conditioning, you'll find something far more dangerous and far more liberating. The truth is this: there exists a hidden current of erotic energy that does not belong to the young at all. It belongs only to the mature woman who has walked through fire, carried scars, embraced shadows, and returned with something that no untouched youth can ever possess: integration of her whole self. Carl Jung hinted at this in his deepest writings, where he uncovered that what society once called vices were never flaws at all. They were gateways, sacred codes of feminine power, distorted and demonized because of how threatening they are to a world built on control. These 8 so-called dirty vices are in fact the keys to awakening a force so magnetic that no evolved man, no man who has faced his own soul, can resist it. Imagine it not as a trick, not as a mask you put on, but as an unlocking of your essence, an energy that radiates without effort, a resonance that speaks directly to the male unconscious. This is not performance, this is initiation. For thousands of years before patriarchy rewrote the story, mature women were revered as the keepers of these mysteries. They were priestesses who carried the knowledge of union, not just of flesh, but of spirit. They taught men and women alike how to step beyond roles, beyond appearances, into the realm where intimacy becomes alchemy. And what gave them this authority was not beauty in the conventional sense, but the fearless way they embraced their shadow. The shadow, that collection of instincts, hungers, desires, and raw truths society tells us to bury, was their source of strength. Where others repressed, they integrated. Where others hid, they embodied. This is the paradox that unsettles the world. The mature woman is not weaker because of her age. She is more dangerous, more magnetic, more alive. She no longer chases validation. She no longer plays games of performance. Her power is not borrowed. It is her own. And when she dares to express it, she becomes the very embodiment of the wild feminine Jung described: untamed, authentic, irresistible. But let me be clear. This path is not gentle. It will not pat you on the back and tell you you're fine just as you are. It will demand honesty that slices through illusions. It will ask you to confront the places you've kept locked, even from yourself. It is a return, not to the girl you once were, but to the woman you were always meant to become. And if you have the courage to step onto this path, what awaits is not just intimacy that burns brighter, but a transformation of how you live, breathe, and hold yourself in the world. The first of these so-called vices, the first doorway, is what I call bold vulnerability. And let me tell you, this is no small step. Bold vulnerability is not simply admitting a fear or telling someone your truth. It is the radical act of revealing your desire without apology. No masks, no strategies, no manipulations designed to keep you safe. Just the naked truth of your hunger, spoken with your whole being. Patriarchal culture has always feared this. Because a woman who says, "This is what I want. This is what I crave. This is the fire that lives inside me," without softening it to be palatable, is a woman who cannot be controlled. Society tries to label her as shameless, inappropriate, too much. But here's the secret Jung uncovered. To the right man, the man who has evolved past insecurity and ego, this bold vulnerability is not too much. It is everything. It is the ultimate invitation to authenticity, the one thing that can pierce through the endless games people play in love. And yes, immature men will shrink from it. They will feel threatened, even repelled. But the men who are ready, the ones who hunger for depth, for truth, for intimacy that goes beyond performance, will be drawn, like moths to flame, because they sense, even without words, that within that vulnerability is extraordinary strength. I remember a woman named Sonia, 54 years old, who carried years of silence in her marriage. She had grown used to dimming her desire, to waiting for her partner to guess at her needs, to apologizing for wanting more. One night, she chose differently. She looked her husband in the eyes and without hesitation told him exactly what she longed for, not as a plea, not as a performance, but as her unfiltered truth. She said it without shame, without justification. And in that moment, something shifted. He didn't just see her as his wife. He saw her as a force. What unfolded between them that night was not just passion, but recognition, as if he had been waiting his whole life to meet this version of her. That is the alchemy of bold vulnerability. It is not about seduction tricks. It is about opening an energetic channel that runs from your body to your heart, to your soul. When you drop the masks and let yourself be seen in your raw truth, you activate what ancient traditions called the jade path, the connection between desire, love, and vision. You become a field of energy so alive that anyone tuned enough can feel it. But vulnerability alone is only the beginning. The second vice, the one most violently suppressed by culture, is what I call sacred selfishness. And already just by hearing the phrase, you can feel how it grates against every lesson drilled into women for centuries. You've been told your worth lies in giving, in self-sacrifice, in placing everyone else's needs before your own. To claim your pleasure, to center your desire, to lead with what brings you joy. That has been branded selfish, dangerous, even immoral. And yet within sacred traditions it was precisely the opposite. The pleasure of a woman was not seen as secondary, but as the very fountain of creation. The female orgasm was not an afterthought. It was a portal, a gateway to the divine. And so the women who carried this wisdom never apologized for demanding fulfillment. They taught men how to rise into greater lovers, not by shrinking themselves, but by owning their pleasure as sacred. Jung rediscovered this truth, that when a woman prioritizes her joy, her needs, her rhythm, she radiates an energy far beyond physical beauty. Men who are secure, men who are ready, feel this energy and are pulled toward it, because it challenges them, it awakens them, it dares them to grow. Louisa, a woman of 57, once told me how her marriage of 3 decades had dulled into routine. She had given and given until desire was a memory. Then she made a choice. She stopped pretending. She stopped faking satisfaction. She began to guide her husband, boldly, unapologetically, into what truly brought her pleasure. She feared he might reject her, feel inadequate. But the opposite happened. He came alive. Her honesty freed him, and together they discovered depths neither had imagined possible. This is sacred selfishness. It is not arrogance. It is not ego. It is remembering that your joy is holy, that your desire is not a burden, but a gift, not only to you, but to the one lucky enough to share it. When you dare to embrace sacred selfishness, something extraordinary happens inside you. The shame dissolves, the years of silence loosen their grip, and suddenly you realize that your desire is not a liability. It's a compass. It points you toward your truth, toward the life and intimacy you were always meant to experience. And when a woman radiates from this place, her presence alone becomes intoxicating. It's not just her smile, her touch, or her body. It's the undeniable aura of someone who knows she deserves to be fulfilled and refuses to apologize for it. In Tantra, they spoke of energy rising like a serpent up the spine, transforming the ordinary into the sacred. This was never a metaphor. It was a lived reality. When you center your own pleasure and allow it to flow without shame, you activate this circuit of energy. It rises through your body, lighting every chakra, every channel, until it bursts through the crown like a fountain of fire. That energy is not just erotic, it's creative. It changes the atmosphere around you. It makes men notice without even knowing why. It's not youth they feel, it's life force. But we must go further, because the next sacred vice tears down one of the most destructive illusions our culture has ever sold, the myth of flawless beauty. Here we enter the third vice, proud imperfection. From the moment a girl is old enough to notice herself in a mirror, she is told she must edit, conceal, perfect. Wrinkles must be hidden, scars erased, curves reshaped, age denied. The world worships a shallow version of beauty that is frozen, sterile, lifeless. And yet, Jung saw that true magnetism does not come from smoothness or symmetry. It comes from presence, from the way a woman inhabits her body without apology. Proud imperfection is not resignation. It is defiance. It is standing in front of the mirror and saying, every line, every scar, every curve is a story. This body has carried me through storms, given birth to dreams, held the weight of heartbreak, and still glows with vitality. Why would I erase that? Why would I hide the very proof of my journey? In ancient cultures, untouched by today's media obsessions, the mature female body was not a flaw to be corrected. It was a symbol of sacred power. Breasts that had nourished life were revered. Bellies that had carried new souls were honored. Wrinkles were seen as maps of wisdom etched by time. And men, evolved men, responded with reverence. Because at the deepest level, what men hunger for is not a mask of youth, but the authenticity of a woman who owns herself completely. Elena, a luminous 62-year-old woman, once confided in me how ashamed she had felt of her aging body. For years, she turned off the lights before intimacy, limiting how she moved, shrinking herself out of fear of being seen too much. But the day she decided to let it all go, to laugh, to reveal, to revel in her body exactly as it was, everything changed. Her partner's response was not disgust, not disappointment, but something far deeper. Desire, reverence, hunger, as if her freedom had unlocked his own. That is the secret of proud imperfection. It is not about lowering standards, it is about dissolving them. When you release the cage of comparison and let your body move as it pleases, you emit a frequency that no cream, no surgery, no filter can ever replicate. It is the frequency of freedom. And this is why, in Taoist traditions, they taught the sacred mirror ritual, to stand naked before yourself, not in judgment, but in gratitude, to touch every part of your body, not with criticism, but with reverence, to say aloud, I am sacred, I am beautiful, I am whole. At first it may feel strange, even painful. But with each repetition, something shifts. Your body stops being a battlefield. It becomes your temple again. Now, as powerful as proud imperfection is, it leads us into something even more potent, the fourth sacred vice, the one Jung himself considered the most transformative of all. Total presence. What does it mean to be present? We think of mindfulness, of focus, of quiet. But total presence in intimacy is something far more radical. It is the ability to dissolve time itself. To step into a state where the past disappears, the future does not exist, and only sensation, only breath, only connection remains. Most people never taste this. Their minds chatter endlessly, even in moments of closeness, worrying about performance, appearance, about doing it right. But when a woman surrenders to total presence, when she lets go of thought and drops fully into her body, something almost supernatural unfolds. Every touch becomes amplified, every breath a symphony, every kiss an entire universe. Society, of course, fears this, because a woman in total presence cannot be controlled. She is too wild, too powerful, too free. In ancient times, she was called dangerous, and indeed she is, because her energy in that state bypasses the rational mind and calls directly to the primal core of a man. It awakens something ancient, something he cannot suppress. Clara, a 59-year-old with a long history of spiritual practice, once told me how this changed her life. For years, even in love, she had held back, watching herself, measuring, never quite surrendering. Then she began practicing what I call the orgasmic breath meditation, where every inhale draws energy from the root to the crown, and every exhale lets it cascade back down. One night, with her partner, she let herself dissolve into this rhythm, and for the first time, she stopped thinking entirely. She simply was. What happened next shocked her. Not only her own experience of ecstasy, but the way her partner responded. He met her with an intensity she had never seen, as if her presence had pulled him into depths he didn't know existed. That is the secret. Presence begets presence. When a woman enters that field, she pulls her partner with her. Together, they touch what the ancients called sexual samadhi, union beyond flesh, a glimpse of the divine through the portal of intimacy. And here lies the irony. What culture calls a vice, Jung understood as a path to transcendence, because in the trance of total presence you are not just giving or receiving pleasure, you are opening a channel to life itself, to the energy that creates and sustains the universe. And yet, even this is not the limit. For beyond presence lies imagination, and beyond imagination, a fire that burns even brighter, which leads us to the fifth sacred vice, forbidden imagination. This is perhaps the most repressed of all. From childhood, you were told what desires were acceptable, what fantasies were proper, what dreams you could confess without shame. Everything else, your deepest hungers, your boldest visions, was locked away, pushed into the shadows of your mind. But imagination is not a childish game. It is a portal. It is the place where reality begins. What you dare to imagine, vividly, unapologetically, is what you invite into existence. And in intimacy, your imagination is a key to entire dimensions of pleasure you may never have touched. Ancient priestesses were trained to cultivate this. They knew that a woman's fantasies were not shameful. They were spells. To imagine was to create, to call forth lovers, experiences, even transformations of the self. Jung himself rediscovered this truth in what he called active imagination, the dialogue with the unconscious that can change your life. And so, when you silence your forbidden imagination, you silence your power. But when you awaken it, you radiate a mystery that men can feel instantly. They may not know what it is, but they sense it, an aura of infinite possibility, a promise of depth, a gateway into the unknown. Forbidden imagination is the realm where your most intimate truths live, often locked away because you have been told they are too much, too wild, or too dangerous. But here is the paradox. What you repress does not disappear. It waits. It waits in dreams, in sudden flashes of desire, In the quiet moments when your body whispers truths your mind is too afraid to hear. And when you finally dare to give it voice, to write it down, to speak it aloud, to share it with someone worthy, the air itself shifts. Maria, a woman of 56 with a vast inner world, once told me that she had spent decades hiding her fantasies. She feared judgment, rejection, the possibility that her desires would expose her as broken or shameful. But when she finally whispered them to her partner, trembling, something miraculous happened. Instead of recoiling, he leaned closer. He shared his own hidden longings, ones he had never dared to reveal. And together, they created a sanctuary of freedom, a space where both could unfold without masks. That night marked not just a new chapter in their intimacy, but a new way of being together, raw, unguarded, alive. This is the gift of forbidden imagination. It is not a game of fantasy for fantasy's sake. It is a ritual of creation. When you dare to explore your erotic psyche, you activate what tantric mystics called the Vak Shakti, the power of the spoken word, infused with desire. Words, when expressed from the deepest layers of your being, do not simply describe reality. They shape it. They call experiences toward you. They draw people into your orbit who resonate with your frequency. And so, cultivating your imagination is not indulgence. It is sacred practice. One of the simplest ways to awaken it is through what I call the Hidden Desires Journal. Each night, before you sleep, write freely for 10 minutes. Do not censor. Do not judge. Let your hand move across the page as if your body itself were speaking. Write the visions that make you blush, the scenarios that feel forbidden, the hungers you've never confessed. And then close the journal, place it somewhere safe, and trust that you have already begun the act of manifestation. Because the moment you put desire into words, you have planted a seed in the soil of your reality. Now, desire without spirit can feel shallow. Spirit without desire can feel dry. But when they merge, when sexuality and spirituality become one current, you enter the realm of the sixth sacred vice, spiritual power. This is perhaps the most dangerous truth of all, which is why religion has fought so fiercely to bury it. For centuries, women were told that sexuality and spirituality stood on opposite sides of a battlefield, that to be holy was to renounce the body, to deny pleasure, to silence the erotic fire. But the ancients knew the opposite. They knew that sexual energy and spiritual energy are one and the same life force, flowing through different channels. Spiritual power is the ability to direct that flow consciously. It is knowing that an orgasm is not just pleasure, but a glimpse of the divine. It is understanding that prayer is not just words, but the opening of energy through the same channels that fuel desire. When you unite the two, you cease to fragment yourself. You become whole. Imagine lying in stillness, breathing deeply, and visualizing a golden sphere pulsing in your pelvic center. With each inhale, it brightens. With each exhale, it expands. Slowly, it rises up the spine, lighting the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, until it bursts through the crown like a flower opening to the sky. And then, on the next exhale, the light cascades back down, infused now with spiritual brilliance, returning to the root. In that moment, the cycle is complete, body and spirit dancing as one. This practice is more than visualization. It is a reminder that you are not divided, that your erotic fire is not shameful. It is divine. And when you carry this awareness into intimacy, it transforms everything. Every touch becomes sacred. Every kiss becomes prayer. Every climax becomes a merging of heaven and earth within your own body. Men feel this instantly. They may not have words for it, but they sense it. The unmistakable gravity of a woman who carries both fire and light within her. A woman whose pleasure is prayer, whose prayer is pleasure. To such a presence, the immature cannot hold, but the evolved, the awakened, the men who crave not just a body but a soul. They are magnetized, unable to look away. And yet, there is still more, because once you have touched your forbidden imagination and harnessed your spiritual power, the next step is liberation itself. Here we enter the seventh sacred vice, conscious transgression. This is the moment you stop asking for permission to exist, the moment you look at the rules handed down to you. What is respectable? What is proper? What is allowed? And you realize they were never written for your freedom. They were written for your containment. Conscious transgression is not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It is not recklessness. It is the clear-eyed choice to break what no longer serves your truth. To step outside the lines not out of spite, but out of love for yourself, for life, for authenticity. It is looking at the cage and realizing the door has always been open. For centuries, women were told, this is how you should speak, this is how you should move, this is what you should want. Even your pleasure was regulated, tolerated only as a shadow of a man's. But when you dare to cross that line, when you say, no, my desire is my own, my life is my own, my body is my own, you ignite a fire that cannot be extinguished. Men feel this too. The insecure will shrink, whispering that you are too much, too difficult, too free. But the men who are ready will feel something else entirely. They will feel awe. They will feel the pull of a woman who is not seeking approval, but radiating truth. A woman who chooses, who dares, who leads by example, simply by being fully herself. And here's the secret. Your transgression liberates more than just you. Every time you step beyond conditioning, you give silent permission for others to do the same. You become a mirror of courage. Your freedom becomes contagious. And so conscious transgression is not selfish. It is revolutionary. It is the refusal to play small so that others can remain comfortable. It is the decision to embody the wild intelligence at the core of your sexuality. The truth that whispers, life is not meant to be caged. And yet, right, there remains one last vice, one final flame that binds them all together. And it is here, in the eighth and most forbidden of them all, that a woman's magnetism becomes unstoppable. The eighth and final sacred vice is the one most feared, most silenced, most erased from history. It is what I call ecstatic surrender, the willingness to let go so completely that you dissolve into the current of life itself. If the earlier vices are about reclaiming your truth, this one is about becoming truth. It is the moment when control evaporates, when masks fall away, when you are no longer performing intimacy, but are swept up in it, carried by forces older than civilization, older than time. Patriarchy has always feared this state because a woman in ecstatic surrender is beyond control. She cannot be tamed, cannot be shamed, cannot be contained. She is too alive, too untouchable, too free. And yet, this is the very state that makes her irresistible. Not because she is trying, but because she has become a conduit for something greater than herself. Imagine this. Every boundary between body and spirit, self and other, dissolves. You are no longer a woman trying to please, nor a woman trying to lead. You are simply an open channel, energy pouring through you, radiating in waves that shake the very air. A man meeting you in this state feels not just desire, but reverence. He feels as if he has touched the divine through you, and in a sense, he has. Because in that moment, you are no longer holding yourself back. You are creation itself. This is why Jung and the mystics before him whispered of the danger and power of this final vice. It was too much for society to bear. A woman who lives here cannot be controlled by fear, cannot be manipulated by shame. She is sovereign, and nothing is more magnetic than sovereignty. But let me make something clear. Ecstatic surrender is not about losing yourself in another. It is not about giving your power away. It is about merging so deeply with your own life force that you finally understand you were never separate from the divine at all. And in intimacy, this revelation explodes into a connection so profound that time itself bends. I once spoke with Clara, a 61-year-old woman who had spent much of her life afraid of pleasure, afraid of what might happen if she let go fully. One night, practicing breath and presence, she surrendered completely. What followed was not just physical climax, it was a shattering. Tears poured from her eyes as laughter bubbled up, as waves of bliss overtook her body. Her partner held her in awe, unable to explain what he was witnessing. But she knew. For the first time in her life, she had met herself without resistance, and in that meeting, she had touched something eternal. This is the promise of the eighth vice. Not simply better intimacy, not simply attraction, but transformation. When you dare to let go, you stop being a woman who tries to be desirable. You become desire itself. And now, looking back, you can see the pattern. Bold vulnerability, sacred selfishness, proud imperfection, total presence, forbidden imagination, spiritual power, conscious transgression, ecstatic surrender. 8 vices the world tried to bury, 8 flames waiting to be rekindled. Together they are not just tools of magnetism, but steps on a path of awakening. The truth is, you were never meant to grow smaller as you aged. You were never meant to lose your fire. You were meant to ripen, to expand, to embody depths that youth cannot touch. The lie that told you otherwise was designed to keep you contained, but the truth has always been yours. Erotic power grows with age because wisdom and desire together create an alchemy no one can resist. And so, the invitation is this. Stop hiding the parts of you that scare others. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop believing the lie that your body, your pleasure, your hunger, your spirit must be diminished to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Instead, integrate them. Celebrate them. Live them out loud. Because when you do, something miraculous happens. Men, real men, men who have faced their own shadows, will recognize you instantly. Not as an object, not as an accessory, but as a force. And they will be drawn, not because you are chasing them, not because you are performing for them, but because you are radiating an energy too rare, too potent, too ancient to ignore. This is your birthright, not given by any man, not granted by society, not dependent on youth. It has always lived within you, waiting for the moment you would dare to claim it. And perhaps you can feel it even now, that flicker inside you, that whisper, "This is who I really am." If you do, then I invite you not to ignore it. Feed it. Breathe into it. Let it grow until it consumes every part of you that ever believed you had to be small. Because the world does not need more women playing by the rules of a broken system. The world needs women who dare to step into their vices, who dare to awaken the sacred fire within them, who dare to embody the fullness of what they are. And if you choose this path, know that you are not walking it alone. Every woman who has ever been silenced walks with you. Every priestess erased from history walks with you. Every ancestor who burned with a fire she could not name walks with you. And together, You carry the torch into a world that has forgotten the power of the mature feminine, but will never forget again once it feels you. So let this be your reminder. You are not finished. You are not fading. You are just beginning. And the woman you are becoming is more irresistible, more magnetic, more alive than the girl you once were could ever imagine. Own it, live it, burn with it, and watch how the world cannot help but turn its gaze toward you. And now, I want you to remember this. You are not defined by the years behind you, nor by the lines on your skin, nor by the lies society has whispered into your ear. You are defined by the fire still burning in your chest, by the truth pulsing in your veins, by the courage to live unapologetically as the woman you were always meant to be. Every scar, every wrinkle, every desire you thought was forbidden is not weakness. It is proof of your aliveness, your initiation into a power the world can no longer ignore. So when you leave this video, don't just nod and agree. Let something shift. Let this truth take root inside you. The next time you look in the mirror, see not what you've lost, but what you've gained. Depth, presence, wisdom, and a magnetism that belongs to you alone. And then carry it. Live it. Let the world feel it in your words, in your walk, in your silence. Because once you awaken this fire, nothing and no one will ever be able to dim it again. You are not fading. You are awakening. And once your fire rises, no one will ever forget the woman you've become.